Hi, today we're going to talk about executing a better business impact analysis in ServiceNow's Business Continuity Management solution. Notice that I'm logged in as Scott Hall, and you can see Scott has visibility over the entire organization because he's the leader of the Business Continuity Office or the Business Continuity Management team. So he can see the status of all BIAs across the entire organization, as well as any disaster recovery, business continuity, or crisis management plans that have been created as well. If Scott wants to see the BIAs that he is specifically accountable for, he can drill right in on that My BIAs tab and click right into any BIAs directly from that tab. So we'll go into the Client Services BIA. And you can see here the BIA survey details gives you information about the name of the BIA, who has accountability as the approver, who is the owner of the BIA, who are the contributors that have the ability to edit maybe questions to the BIA that you see here, what is the BIA targeting, and this is very important and I think a big differentiator for ServiceNow because the BIA functionality can target business processes as well as applications that are housed in the CMDB, or if you don't have that functionality or not utilizing that functionality, that are specific to elements that you build out within the business continuity solution. The status, this one is currently in an approved state. The cadence, that's how often you are refreshing your BIAs. And then the due date for the next time that the BIA does need to be refreshed. The score and the recovery time objective are automatically being generated off of the answers to the questions that you see here in the BIA. A BIA contains various questions. You have complete control over which questions you want to add for each and every one of your BIAs, and you can tailor that specifically to the BIA. You can also weight each one of the questions as far as how it rolls up and automatically calculates that criticality and that score and the recovery time objective. So let's start with the dependency tab here. This is a very essential functionality here within ServiceNow's business continuity solution, and I think it's a good differentiator as well. So you notice that we're basically building relationships. In this case, we've got a business process, client services, that's being targeted by the BIA. And we're establishing relationships between that process and the various assets that enable that business process, as well as any related business processes to that process, that client services process. You can easily add or remove parent processes, so that would be anything that appears above, like invoice management and SAP financial accounting. And then you can also add or remove child dependencies as well, and that's anything that appears here below. Now, you can also take advantage of the functionality that you are building out in your CMDB within ServiceNow. And again, this is a huge differentiator. If you've already built relationships between business processes or business services and various applications, for example, in the CMDB, those relationships will appear with solid lines between the different nodes, okay? If the relationship building is done specifically in the business impact analysis functionality within ServiceNow, business continuity management, then those relationships will appear as dotted lines like the ones you see here. So all the relationships that we built here have been built within the business continuity solution. Furthermore, if you've established recovery time objectives for any of these assets through a BIA, and you've established, in this case, a recovery time objective for this business process that we're targeting in this particular BIA, if there are gaps between recovery time objectives, recovery time objective is essentially how quickly you need to recover a business process and or an application at an alternate site if you have a disaster or a crisis or a business continuity event. If you have gaps between recovery time objectives, those gaps will show up in red. Good example would be, let's say client services has a 15-minute recovery time objective, yet it relies on application X to enable that process. So you can't do the process without the application. And application X has maybe a 4-hour recovery time objective. You then have a gap because the application that client services relies on has a lower recovery time objective. So basically what you would see there is that gap would show up in red. All right. Next tab we'll talk about is the attachments. Quite often you'll see attachments added to a BIA. That would be any pertinent data, any considerations that need to be taken into account when filling out the BIA. Next, any general comments. Comments can be passed between contributors and owners or approvers of the BIA. And then you get into the real meat of the BIA itself, and that is the questions that are being asked. This is just an example of 5 different questions that we have available. Again, you can create your own questions. You can take the questions that we provide and tailor them and change them. You can weight each one of these questions separately, again, to roll back up to that recovery time objective. In this case, we're asking 5 simple questions, and they're around impact, always assuming a worst case scenario, as we mentioned earlier. So if you cannot perform this particular client services function or process, what is the impact to clients? And you're looking at impact over time. Definitely a standard within business continuity to look at impact over time, because as an outage or out of service condition goes on and continues further in time and lasts longer, that impact will ramp up over time, and that's why we ask about the impact over these different time increments. Next, brand image and reputation. This is around, what is the impact to your reputation and your brand image if you can't perform an essential service that's potentially customer facing. Next, legal and regulatory impacts. Again, we're trying to understand maybe if you're going to incur fines, if a particular functionality is down, and whether there are any legal ramifications. Financial impact. This generally has most of the weighting here. This is where we're trying to understand over time any monetary loss, any material impact as a result of a worst case scenario, and in this case, a loss of the client services functionality in your organization. And then last but not least, what is the impact to your operations internally? For example, if you have a particular situation where employees can't do their job at a particular location for an extended amount of time, or you have applications that are down for an extended amount of time, what is the impact internally to your overall operation? All right. And all that would roll back up to my dashboard. Once the BIAs move from the in progress state and then are submitted to the approver for approval, the approver has the ability to look at the BIA and determine whether or not it is satisfactory and meets all the general criteria and whether the answers make sense. And if not, they can push that back to the people that have the ability to make changes to the BIA, or they can approve the BIA, in which case the BIA would move to an approved state. Here you can see if any BIAs had been returned, they would show up in red. So in closing, we've covered 3 major benefits of business impact analysis. The first, to make better risk-informed decisions with visibility into the risk of worst-case scenarios. Second, to recover critical systems and business processes more quickly. And last, minimize the cost of a major disruption. For more information on business continuity management, check out the solution page at ServiceNow.com. Thank you, and have a nice day.